Listen carefully to what's not being said here, because this isn't just a conversation about Europe's economy, it's a quiet admission that the old rules no longer work. There's no silver bullet, no dramatic announcement, just a series of pressure points revealing how exposed Europe really is to China, to the US, and to its own internal friction. And if you blink, you'll miss the moment where confidence quietly turns into concern. From the outside, this sounds like a familiar policy discussion: growth, competitiveness, AI, capital markets. But from a third-angle perspective, watching tone, timing, and what's emphasized, this exchange reveals something deeper. This is not a leader describing momentum. This is a leader managing imbalance.
Importantly, though, you framed out an economic direction for France and for Europe. If you had to prioritize to transform France and Europe as fast as possible, you close saying, yes, we are slow, yes, but what can we do right now to really accelerate it, to broaden the economies across Europe, that we have more participants? Is there any one silver bullet that you could do to really accelerate that type of growth?
I don't think there is one silver bullet, but I think on the very short run, given the situation in some critical sectors, I think the European preference is a necessity because we are desynchronized with the others. And the second one is clearly a big bunch of simplification. The 28th regime, which is being prepared by the Commission, and the deepening of the single market is key. And this is why I insisted on capital market union. I think if we deliver European preference and capital market union, here are two game changers.
Well, you know, I've been talking about the capital market union in Europe as one of the major hindrances compared to the US. And so, yes, but I do believe, as we witnessed starting last year, and we're starting to see it accelerate this year, you're starting to see more international flows coming back to Europe. And so that is beginning, and so I do believe that will accelerate. But in terms of priorities, if you had to tell the Commission, what should they be more swift in terms of transforming Europe faster, so it can compete with the US, compete with Europe, and exceed China and Europe, China and the US?
Look, I think this is the discussion we have clearly with the Commission. We will have an informal summit in February focused on this topic. Everything was largely drafted by both Letta and Draghi's reports and is well known. I think the difference is that Draghi was before China surpluses vis-à-vis Europe. I mean, we should not underestimate the fact that 2025, for the very first time,
$1 trillion.
Yeah, China has such a surplus vis-à-vis the rest of the world, one-third vis-à-vis the US, one-third Europe, one-third the rest of the world.
But it was $1 trillion. It was bigger than any other time.
Yeah, and for the first time, the deficit between Germany and China was a trade deficit for Germany. And this is a game changer for Europe. So this is why, clearly for me, we have to fix this issue. And second, it's about the tariffs. So if I have to tell you what could change the game and our approach for all of us in the year to come, for me it would be a bunch of simplification with all this omnibus package for the Commission, sector by sector, European preference, capital market union, and dismantling of the tariff between US and Europe. Because in such a context, what doesn't make sense is to have tariffs between allies.
Right.
We have to fix the war in Ukraine. We have to help the Ukrainians to resist and find a sustainable peace. We have to fix prosperity in democracies. I mean, it doesn't make sense to have tariffs and be divided, and even to threaten now with additional tariffs. We can use the crazy thing is that we can be put in a situation to use the anti-coercion mechanism for the very first time vis-à-vis the US if they put additional tariffs. Can you imagine that?
The first thing to notice is how quickly the idea of a single solution is dismissed. There is no silver bullet. That phrase does more than lower expectations, it reframes responsibility. Instead of urgency, we're given sequencing, preference, simplification, capital markets. This matters because moments of true acceleration usually come with clarity. Here, acceleration is described as administrative, not transformational. Ask yourself, if the problem were truly solvable with speed, would the solution sound this procedural? European preference is framed as necessity, not ideology. That's an important shift. It quietly acknowledges something Europe has resisted saying openly for years, that global synchronization is over. This isn't about protectionism, it's about survival in a world where others are already acting unilaterally, and the word desynchronized does heavy lifting here. It implies Europe isn't late, it's operating on a different clock entirely. The question becomes, is European preference a strategy or a response to having fewer options? The most revealing moment comes with China, a $1 trillion surplus. For the first time, Germany running a trade deficit with China. That's not presented as a statistic, it's framed as a game changer, and it is. Because Europe's economic model was built on the assumption that Germany exports strength outward. When that reverses, the entire internal balance shifts. Notice what isn't said, there's no clear counter-strategy offered, only the urgency to fix this issue. When leaders say fix without explaining how, it usually means the tools are limited. The tone changes when tariffs come up. Words like crazy, unpredictability, and useless aggressivity slip through carefully but deliberately. This is frustration filtered through diplomacy. The contradiction is clear. Europe is trying to compete globally while still negotiating unity with its closest allies. And here's the quiet paradox. Europe needs openness to grow, but boundaries to survive. So the real question isn't whether tariffs make sense, it's whether alliances still function under economic stress. Repeated calls to remain calm aren't accidental. Calm becomes the substitute for control. When volatility rises and leverage falls, stability becomes the message. But calm doesn't resolve imbalance, it buys time. And time in this conversation is clearly running faster than policy.
This is crazy. I do regret that. But this is a consequence of just unpredictability and useless aggressivity. So what we have to do is to remain very calm, all of us. We have such an agenda with so many opportunities and so many challenges. So let's be focused on peace in Europe. Everybody should be focused to help the Ukrainians to have a sustainable peace. Level playing field and fixing the issues and these imbalances with China, because it's an issue for the Europeans and the Americans. And third, let's be focused on more competitiveness in Europe and this big acceleration, full stop.
Throughout the sessions today, and I think during the week, AI is going to be the dominant conversation. And the question is, how does AI develop in Europe? I know there was one conversation already being held on that. What is your vision of AI for France specifically?
Look, we are a strong believer, and 1 year ago we organized this AI summit in Paris, and we are one of the most vibrant ecosystems in Europe. We really believe and we are committed on AI because we really think that this is a game changer.
Finally, AI appears almost abruptly. It's described as a game changer, a true revolution, yet notice how little detail follows. This suggests something important. AI is being positioned as future justification, not present relief. It's hope on the horizon, not leverage today. Which raises a final question viewers should sit with. Is Europe preparing to lead the next transformation, or leaning on the promise of one to offset today's constraints? This conversation isn't about speed, it's about adjustment, about recognizing that the global landscape has shifted and that Europe is still deciding whether it's reacting or reshaping itself. And that decision, more than any policy, is what will define what comes next.